So welcome back to Episode by Episode, a series of videos where I look back at every single episode of a TV show and give some brief thoughts about each individual episode. We're continuing on with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and we are on to Season 5. My personal favourite season of Buffy. I just feel that, whereas Season 4, I didn't dislike that particular season, but I have issues with it. It kind of feels like a show that was in transition. It didn't quite know how to make it from the high school years to adult life. It wasn't sure how to navigate that. So there were some missteps along the way, both in terms of the quality of the episodes and of the tone. But Season 5, for me, nails it for the most part. I think it's got a few dull episodes amongst the mix, and we'll get to them. But as a whole, as a cohesive story from start to finish, Season 5 isn't bettered for me. I love it. I love the character of Glory. I love just the overall arc of this season. I think it's a top quality season, certainly the best Buffy in my mind. And yeah, a season I love that I've been looking forward to speak about. Unfortunately, the first episode of this is one I didn't particularly like all that much, but let's talk about it anyway. Buffy versus Dracula. I think it's just because the character of Dracula is in this that it took me out of the episode a bit. Even the first time I watched it, I just thought it was a bit silly that we had Dracula. It seemed a bit too on the nose for Buffy, and I wasn't a huge fan of the character himself either. Like, the performance I don't think was the problem, but there was just something about that character that didn't work for me. He seemed far too strange. Like, he didn't seem like he belonged in the Buffyverse, and as such I struggled to connect with this episode for that reason. That's not to say it's a bad episode. There's some good things about it. There's a lot about Buffy that I quite like and how she's able to get sucked in by Dracula. A couple of standout moments, by far Xander being under his thrall. I love Xander in this episode, it's so funny. As is Giles being seduced in the pit as well, another great moment. So this is an episode that does have some solid moments to it, but one that I just, couldn't really connect with. And I seem to have a lot of problems with season premieres for Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The pilot, Welcome to the Hellmouth, wasn't a huge fan of. When She Was Bad, not really. Anne was fine. The Freshman was fine. And I'd say the same about this one. This one's just alright as well. And of course, this does end with one of the most infamous moments in Buffy history, the arrival of Dawn, who we'll discuss now with the episode Real Me. So Dawn has a lot of haters, doesn't she? She's not the most popular character that the show's ever seen. In fact, she's probably the least popular of the main cast, I think. Probably even worse than Riley in the popularity stakes. But again, much like Riley, I'm cool with Dawn. I think Michelle Trachtenberg did a good job playing her. And yeah, the character's irritating at times. Sometimes she's very, very irritating. But she's meant to be, because she's a teenager. She's a teenage girl. And yeah, I do think there's some issues with how old Dawn is and how old she acts. Like, I don't think she was written overly well in that regard. She always seems like she was written a bit younger than she was. Particularly in Season 5 and into Season 6. I think she's much better in 7. But yeah, I didn't have too many issues with Dawn because I just saw her as a kid who was meant to be irritating to all those around her, including Buffy. And let's just talk about the genius of what Joss Whedon did here. Bringing in a sister for Buffy out of nowhere, and then for a good couple of episodes not really mentioned in it. And there's hints in this episode that something's not quite right, but for the most part, it's just played as if she was always there. And there was a lot of reaction at the time when this first aired of how unrealistic it was. And it's like, come on, people, this is a Buffy show. Joss Whedon's not the sort of person to just throw something like this in without a reason for it. But yeah, I'm getting ahead. We'll get to that episode shortly. But I loved the storyline of Dawn. I thought it was done in such a clever way. And that's potentially why I don't hate the character as much as everybody else does. In fact, I wouldn't even say I hate her. I just dislike her on occasion. I say she gets much better as it goes along. A character that I'm not a massive fan of is Harmony. And that's not to do with Mercedes McNabb. I think she plays her as written. Like, she plays her as she's meant to. So she does very well with the role. But I've just never really got on with that character. But she is fun here. I enjoy her with her henchmen, including Tom Lenk. As not Andrew. He will be back as Andrew. But yeah, I enjoy her here. I enjoy the fact she's trying to get her own crew and cause her own problems, and it's obviously Harmony, so it's not going to work out all that well for her. The replacement. I love it when we get a good Xander episode. When this show first began, the Xander episodes, as I've mentioned in the videos, were not good at all. The Pack, Teacher's Pet, Inca Mummy Girl, like the Xander-centric episodes were some of the worst episodes. Not quite as bad as I, Robot You, Jane, but certainly lower par Buffy. This is one of my favourites, though. I love this. Nicholas Brendan is so much fun as both versions of Xander. He does really well playing two extremes of one character. One who's the ultimate loser and one who's the winner. One who's together and sorted and doing really well with life. Getting an amazing apartment, getting a really good job. And it's very interesting to watch the two of them kind of spar off each other. Anya's reaction to this is brilliant. I love the fact that she wants both of them to stick around just because that's Anya, and of course she would. And it sheds some light into the character of Xander as well. For a lot of the time in Season 4, he was a bit of a spare part. He was a loose end who didn't really know what to do with himself or where he fit in with the team. So it's nice to see that is addressed in Season 5. We get a lot of good growth for Xander here that carries him right through to the end of the show. Like, he stays in that apartment, he gets that job. Yeah, just a really fun episode, and it includes the Snoopy dance, which I love, and I can just watch on a loop. I think there's a gif of it somewhere. It's a really good gif. Go watch that gif. Out of My Mind is an interesting episode for Riley. Again, I'll keep saying it, a character I don't particularly dislike all that much. It's good here to see the initiative come back into play and know that it's not just been completely forgotten since Season 4, and it shouldn't be, because there's a lot of elements about it that are still relevant to where the show is in Season 5. Particularly Riley and what he's doing with his life now, and this is kind of the start of a bit of a spiral for Riley towards his exit, and I like that. I think when the character's given darker material to work with, he's a lot more effective as a character. So I like what goes on with him here. It's nice to have Graham back, and it's nice to see bits of the initiative again, even though it was apparently burnt to the ground. There's still some remnants of it that are still remaining. And of course, the larger thing that the initiative gave us that still holds on to the show is Spike's chip. And it makes total sense that Spike would want that thing out still and take every opportunity to be able to do it. And here, along with Harmony, he's trying to find a way to do just that. And this seems to really set up what's going to happen with Spike in the future as well, with his obsession with Buffy. Like, he blames Buffy for everything that's going wrong with him. He doesn't get the chip out because of Buffy. And of course, there's Joyce, who collapses in this one. And I can't even really talk about the whole Joyce thing, because we'll get to the body in the next video, but it's tough. So it sucks to see the start of that happening here. When she collapses, it's a really shocking moment, particularly with the Who Are You at Dawn, which kind of plays into that Who Is Dawn thing. So yeah, it's an episode that I don't know. I quite like the episode. It's not one I'm ever eager to rewatch, but it's one, if it comes along, I'm happy to see it again. And maybe that's because, yeah, I like the character of Riley. One of the few that do. No Place Like Home. So this is where Season 5 really gets going, and what an episode this is. I absolutely love everything about this episode because it achieves so much. It tells us all we need to know about Dawn. She's a key. She's a key between dimensions, made into human form and given to Buffy as a sister. Like, it's such an out there concept, but it's able to feel grounded because of how it's written and how it's performed. Like Michelle Trachtenberg, Sarah Michelle Gellar, like, they play this thing perfectly. And I love that it looks like Dawn's a villain. Like, it builds that up in this one. We think that she's the actual big bad of the season, but then obviously in comes Glory. Glory, I think, is my favourite of the villains of all 5 seasons. Close thing between her and the Mayor, but I love Glory. I think Claire Kramer plays her so well. It's so good to have a villain that's just a ton of fun. And the Mayor had aspects of that to him. But last season was Adam, and yeah, Adam wasn't all that fun. Like, he was an interesting enough villain, I thought, but he wasn't fun. Glory is. Glory just seems like somebody who's out to have a good time, and really all she wants to do is get home. There's something almost relatable about that, which is why I think Glory works as well as she does. And she's damn powerful as well. That first fight between her and Buffy is so cool to watch, because just from one fight, early on in the season as well, this isn't a holding back the big bad until later. Like, we get Glory very early on, much to the season's benefit. And yeah, that first fight between her and Buffy instantly makes you just think, how the hell is Buffy going to defeat her? Because she is a force to be reckoned with. And despite being such a big episode for the mythology of the show, there's some cool little moments here as well. The magic box gets opened, a set that I really, really like. I was sad when that went at the end of Season 6. And Spike's stalking of Buffy, complete with the best line that Spike's ever given, out for a walk, bitch. I think I might have done the fingers wrong there, but you know the one I mean. Love that Spike line. Family is a relatively low-key episode for one that's written and directed by Joss Whedon. I remember when the episodes come along, I always used to pay attention to who wrote them, because I think the writers are quite important to an episode or a movie. It's why I always say who writes a movie when I do the movie reviews. And yeah, it's always a big deal when it's a Joss Whedon one. When Joss is written and directed, you know it's going to be a huge episode, and this one isn't really. It's a much more smaller scale episode. It's a personal episode, and most importantly, it's about Tara. Tara, who's been in the show for pretty much a full season at this point. Her and Willow have been together for a while. Like, she's almost a full member of the team. Like, it feels like she's just a little bit outside of it, and this episode brings her in. And I love it. It's so cool finding out more about Tara. Like, hi, Amy Adams, didn't know you were related to Tara. And it's, yeah, a lot of interesting backstory for Tara in this one that I think she desperately needed around this point, because Tara was and is a good character. She's one that's fun to watch. Like, there's something very intriguing about her, and she's played brilliantly by Amber Benson, but we didn't know a huge amount about her until this one. And the thing I love the most about it is that scene towards the end where everybody in the Scooby Gang basically tells Tara that she's their family. Like, what a heartwarming moment that is. And it shows how much they really like Tara, because she nearly got them all killed because of her magic in this one, because she was so desperate to protect her secret. But that's why these characters work so well together, because even when they do something pretty bad, everybody kind of takes them in anyway. In this show, if you're part of the gang, you are part of that gang, regardless of kind of anything you do, really, to a limit, I think. But yeah, they're so quick to forgive Tara, and it's just such a heartwarming moment when she sees them not only forgive her, but say that she's one of them. It's such a great moment. And yeah, I wish Joss Whedon did more of these smaller episodes. I mean, he always seems to come in for the big mythology episodes, but he did a really good job at this one. It's just a shame there wasn't more like this. Fall for Love is the best Spike episode in quite a long time. I'm a huge Spike fan. I love the character, and I enjoy the little moments that he has, but he's not really had an episode all to himself for quite some time now. He's always just kind of in and out of other people's storylines. Here, this is all about him. This is Buffy getting injured and wanting to find out how Spike killed the Slayer. And he tells her that whole story, and we get to see it, and it's incredible to watch. One of my favourite moments, I think, in the whole of Buffy and Angel is that slow motion shot of Angela, Spike, Drusilla and Darla walking in slow motion, and Spike jumps over that crate. It's just such an epic scene. Yeah, I love it. Kind of gives me chills when I watch it, combined with the music as well. So good. And Spike's evolved so much over the course of the show, it's kind of jarring to see him as this full-on villain, because he's still a bad guy at this stage. That's without question. He certainly is, but he's not the sort of vampire now that you think could kill a Slayer. I mean, the chip helps with that, sure, but here we get to see him, yeah, take a couple of Slayers down, and he's pretty damn powerful. We see why he was William the Bloody, and I think we needed that reminder of Spike at this stage to say that, look, he's a bad, bad guy, no matter how much you like this character, he's very, very evil, and we get to see that in full display here with the character of Nikki Wood, the former Slayer, and that will obviously come back into play in Season 7 as well. So a very important episode and a very, very good one. The flashbacks, I think, have always done pretty well on this show. There's always the Angel wig problem that you get. And it's here as well. David Boreanaz in a wig doesn't really quite work. But yeah, for the most part, excellent, excellent episode for Spike. So we're at a couple of episode lull now, I think, for Season 5. I'm not a huge fan of these next two episodes. Shadow has moments. So both of these episodes have moments going for it. And they're Joyce. The thing with Shadow, seeing Joyce going through what she's going through and just deteriorating physically is a horrible thing to watch, because Joyce is just one of those characters that is so easy to love. Christine Sutherland just plays her so well that she almost feels like a part of the Scooby Gang, really, particularly since she's found out about the slaying. So yeah, to see this happen to her, it's a difficult thing to watch, really difficult. And it's the strongest aspect of this episode, and it's good that it's in there, because while there are other interesting things, like there's more Glory, there's more Ben, there's also a pretty terrible giant snake, which kind of ruins the episode for me, because it doesn't look good. Buffy doesn't do snakes overly well. Every time it tries, it's pretty terrible. A reptile boy didn't work. It almost killed the episode Graduation Day. And again, here, another poor snake. Maybe it was time to stop doing snakes. But yeah, Shadow's an episode that I can't even think of much to say about. It's just, apart from the Joyce stuff, it's just a episode. It doesn't really do anything all that much. I mean, there are more hints towards Riley there, Riley feeling on the outs with Buffy and kind of what it's pushing him to do. So that is interesting, and there are multiple interesting bits about the episode. It's just the execution just feels like a very messy episode. It should have been a lot more, I think, particularly with what was going on with Joyce. And I can say the same kind of thing about listening to Fear, really. I mean, Christine Sutherland's performance in this episode is incredible. She's so good at this unhinged Joyce, like the Joyce who's seriously, seriously ill and not acting herself. She does so well with it. So does Michelle Trachtenberg, and Sarah Michelle Gellar is astounding in this episode. She has some incredible moments. That scene where she's washing up and crying is done so well. But much like Shadow, the villain of the episode lets it down. And something crashing down from space. Again, it didn't really feel Buffy to me. It felt like something crashing in out of a different show altogether. I think there was interesting elements to the monster, but yeah, on the whole, it didn't do a huge amount for me. But again, much like Shadow, there are important elements here. Joyce knows that Dawn's not really her daughter now. I love that scene. That's done really well. There's a lot of interesting things about Ben here, and that he summoned the Queller Demon to try and counteract what Glory's doing by sucking these people's brains out. Into the Woods. Latest Riley. As much as I like the character of Riley, I do think that writing him out of the show was the best thing to do for the show, because Season 5 becomes a lot better after he leaves, and I don't think that's down to Mark Blucas. I just think the show kind of gets better at that point, but I don't know where Riley would have fit in later in the season, particularly with all the heavy stuff that's coming up, so it does make sense for him to go, and the way they did it, I'm kind of okay with. As I say, I like the darkness to Riley's character. I like when there are dark elements to him here, and sort of letting vampires feed off him is kind of as dark as it gets. And both Lucas and Sarah Michelle Gellar are really, really good in this episode. Buffy's reaction to seeing Riley like that is really heartbreaking to see. I mean, she has been pushing him away, but she's not been meaning to do it. And Riley, you can kind of sympathise with him too. I mean, I'm not sure that I personally get bitten by vampires. I'm sure there's other things you can do instead, but it kind of makes sense that he's trying to find something and feel something, because he's not getting that from Buffy. And of course, it's Spike that shows her. Spike who's starting to develop his Buffy crush. So lots of elements at play here, and I think most of them work. I mean, his goodbye scene is great. I just love the helicopter takeoff and Buffy just missing him. Like, I'm a sucker for moments like that, and I think it really works. Again, the music really helps to sell that scene. This is Thomas Wanker's score now. Christoph Beck left after season 4. But yeah, a lot of good stuff in Into the Woods, and I particularly like Xander and Anya. Here we see that they genuinely do love each other. Xander says it for the first time, and it's a really, really sweet scene and a really good juxtaposition for what we're just seeing with Buffy and Riley. Like one couple splitting up and the other one becoming closer than ever. So I think that was a necessary scene to have, and that relationship needed it. We needed to invest in it on a personal level. We need to know they weren't just having sex, they genuinely did love each other, and you get that in this. So yeah, I really like Into the Woods. I think it's a great episode. Followed by a really fun one in Triangle. Willow and Anya. This show's so good at just sticking a couple of characters together and making them really work well together, and it's sometimes the best when these couples don't do it all that often. For example, Willow and Anya. The two of them, I don't want to say they hate each other, but there's a definite personality clash between them. And when they're together, sparks fly, and it's so much fun to watch. None more so, I think, than Triangle. Like, what a great fun episode this is. Olaf the Troll is one of my favourite guest characters, I think. He's so silly, so ridiculous, but yet somehow it works. It doesn't feel too silly, and that's what Buffy excels at, is having really silly things in the episode, but making them feel almost realistic. And there's a lot of growth for the two of them here. They actually speak. They actually have a conversation with each other and address why they have these issues with one another, and it's nice. Both actresses are really good. They work well together. And yeah, it's just the recipe for just a great deal of fun. And that's exactly what Triangle is. It never manages to be too silly. It always knows exactly just when to restrain it. But yeah, a lot of fun here. And a nice one for Buffy as well. We do get to see her cry over Riley. We do get to see her sad. But at the same time, there's some fun and comedy to be mined from that too. Like asking how to become a nun, for example. Love that little moment. It's a very Buffy-like moment. Spike as well continues his infatuation with Buffy. And I'm always kind of on the fence with that. Some episodes I love it, some I don't. On this one, I think James Masters portrays the frustrations of Spike really well, that I can get on board with it. Yeah, I really, really enjoy Triangle. So there are my brief thoughts on the first 11 episodes of Buffy the Vampire Slayer Season 5. We're back to do the latter half of the season next week, but let me know what you think about these episodes in the comments below. Rank them, rate them, tell me everything you think about Buffy. Let's talk about the show. Hit like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more of them. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.